When my sister got brutally tasered by our power-hungry HOA president over unauthorized guest parking, none of us knew she was a senior partner at the city's most feared law firm, or that we'd uncover a massive real estate conspiracy that would bring the entire corrupt board down in handcuffs. What would you do if your neighborhood tyrants messed with the wrong family? Comment below where you're watching from. Blood rushed to my face as I stared at the bright yellow notice stuck to my front door. Violation approved, guest parking, $50 fine. I tore it down just as my sister Amelia pulled into the driveway. She'd only been staying with me for 2 weeks while her new house was being painted. You won't believe this, I said, showing her the paper. The HOA is already finding reasons to find us. Amelia laughed it off. Classic power trip. I'll just park on the street from now on. I watched her walk inside, briefcase in hand, totally unbothered. That was Amelia, always cool under pressure, but something about this felt personal. I'd lived in Pinecrest Gardens for 3 years without issues until now. The next morning I spotted Diane Wilcox, our HOA president, taking photos of my yard from the sidewalk. She didn't even try to hide it, just pointed her phone at my house like she owned the place. When she saw me watching through the window, she gave a smug little wave. That woman is obsessed with control, my neighbor Rob told me later that day. Ever since she became president 6 months ago, violations have gone up 300%. My kid got fined for leaving his bike in our driveway overnight that evening while Amelia and I were making dinner. The doorbell rang. There stood Diane with Thomas Harding, the HOA treasurer. Both wore matching navy blue blazers with gold Pinecrest Gardens HOA pins. We need to discuss your growing list of violations, Diane said, not bothering with hello. Her voice sounded sugary, but her eyes were cold as ice. Growing list? It was just one parking notice, I replied, trying to stay polite. Thomas pulled out a tablet and started reading. Unapproved guest parking, $50, improper trash bin placement, $75, unapproved vehicle in driveway, $100, unauthorized wind chime, $75 wind chime. I sputtered. I've had those for 2 years. The bylaw against noise-making decorations was passed last month. Diane smiled. Page 47 of the updated guidelines. You did read the new manual, didn't you? This is ridiculous, I said. My trash bins are exactly where they've always been. They must be precisely 6 in from the side of the house, Thomas explained. Yours are 8 in out. I measured personally. Amelia appeared behind me. Is there something I can help with? Diane's eyes narrowed. And you are? I'm her sister, not a guest, Amelia said calmly. I'm staying temporarily while my house is being renovated. Any stay over 10 days requires board approval. Diane snapped. That's another $150 fine. I felt my chest tighten. This is getting out of hand. Rules are rules, Thomas said with a shrug. Payment is due in 48 hours, Diane added, handing me a bill totaling $450. After that it doubles, and we need your sister's vehicle removed from the property by tomorrow. As they walked away, I saw Diane turn to whisper something to Thomas. They both laughed while glancing back at my house. Don't let them get to you, Amelia said, putting a hand on my shoulder. This kind of petty tyranny is more common than you think. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept wondering why Diane had suddenly targeted me around 2 a.m. I heard a car door slam and peeked through the blinds to see Thomas placing something on my mailbox. When he left, I sneaked outside to find another violation notice. Unapproved exterior lighting, $100. My porch light, the same one I'd had since moving in. The next day, 3 more neighbors on my street received similar notices. Ellen across the street got fined for her flower pots being non-conforming colors. Old Mr. Jacobson 2 doors down received a $200 fine for his grandson's tricycle being visible from the street. Something fishy is happening, Ellen told me when we met at the mailboxes. Diane's husband works for Valley Development Group. They've been buying up houses in neighborhoods like ours. That afternoon I watched from my kitchen window as Diane and Thomas walked the neighborhood, pointing at how houses and making notes. When they passed my driveway, Diane took out a measuring tape and ran it from my mailbox to the street, smiling as she wrote something down. I decided to do some digging while Amelia was at work. I pulled up the county property records website. What I found made my stomach drop. 6 homes in our neighborhood had been sold in the last 3 months, all to shell companies linked to Valley Development Group. When Amelia got home, I showed her what I'd found. Classic, a Tory tactic, she said, studying my notes. Create impossible standards, harass homeowners with fines, drive people to sell. What can we do? I asked. First we document everything, she replied, pulling out her laptop. Forward me all the violation notices. I want dates, times, amounts. As she typed, I noticed something different about my sister. The professional, calm demeanor she always had was still there, but now there was a steely determination in her eyes. I rarely saw Amelia, I said slowly. What exactly do you do at your law firm? She looked up with a small smile. I specialize in property law and predatory housing practices, but let's keep that our secret for now. The next morning I woke to find my entire front yard covered in orange violation flags. Each one had a different infraction written on it. Grass too tall, unapproved plant species, decorative rock placement violation. From across the street, I spotted Diane watching from her window, coffee cup in hand. When our eyes met, she didn't look away, she just smiled wider. What she didn't see was Amelia taking photos of every flag, her phone automatically timestamping and geotagging each image. Nor did she see my neighbor Rob's security camera capturing the whole scene from his porch. This means war, I whispered to myself. I gasped in shock when I turned onto my street. A massive tow truck was backing up to Amelia's car with flashing lights. Two men in uniforms were attaching chains while Diane stood nearby, arms folded with a triumphant look on her face. Stop, I shouted, running toward them. What are you doing? That car is legally parked on a public street. One of the tow operators looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, we have authorization from the HOA to remove this vehicle. The HOA has no authority over public streets, I insisted, pulling out my phone. I'm calling the police. Diane stepped forward, her heels clicking on the pavement. Actually, we do have authority. This section of street was deeded to the association in the original community plan, page 118 of the covenants. She handed me a paper with an official look stamp. Plus your sister is an unauthorized resident. The total fine is now $650. Immediately my hands shook as I tried to think. This isn't right. Rules are rules, Diane said with a shrug that matched Thomas's from yesterday. Perhaps you should consider if this neighborhood is really right for you. I watched helplessly as they towed Amelia's car away. On my front door was a boot notice and another violation paper. This one read, unsightly yard decorations violation, flags, $200 fine. Inside, I called Amelia immediately. They towed your car from the street. My voice cracked with anger. I know, she replied calmly. I got an alert from my tracking app. Don't worry about it. I've already called our police. Contact Amelia. What's going on? I'll explain tonight, she said. Right now, I need you to take photos of every document they've given you, and don't touch those flags in the yard. We need them as evidence. 2 hours later, a knock at my door revealed Rob and Ellen both holding HOA violation notices. We got hit too, Ellen said, waving her paper. $300 for excessive garden gnomes. I only have one. Rob nodded glumly. They're saying my American flag is mounted at an unapproved angle, whatever that means. Soon 5 more neighbors arrived, all with similar stories. Margaret showed us a $250 fine for a bird feeder she'd had for 12 years old. Mr. Jacobson received a notice that his handicap ramp needed to be removed because it wasn't pre-approved. Sophia, a single mom from 2 streets over, was in tears, explaining how they threatened to put a lien on her house because her kids left bicycles in the front yard. They're targeting everyone who can't easily fight back. Rob observed elderly people, single parents, people who work long hours. Just then, Amelia walked in, followed by a police officer. My sister looked perfectly calm, but I noticed how tightly she gripped her leather portfolio. Everyone, this is Officer Rivera, she announced. Hune here to take statements about the illegal towing and harassment. The officer nodded. We've received multiple complaints about this HOA in recent weeks. I'd like to hear from each of you as everyone shared their stories. Amelia set up a laptop and connected it to my TV while Officer Rivera documents your experiences. I want to show you what I've discovered, she said, pulling up a spreadsheet. I've been tracking every violation notice in this neighborhood for the past 2 weeks. The screen filled with dates, addresses, fine amounts, and photos. 93 violations issued in 14 days, Amelia explained. That's compared to 37 even in the entire previous year. She clicked to another screen showing a map of our neighborhood with houses highlighted in different colors. Red marks show homes that received more than 5 violations. Yellow shows homes recently sold. Notice anything the pattern was obvious. Houses with the most violations were directly adjacent to recently sold properties. They're creating a domino effect, Amelia explained. Force one homeowner out, then target their neighbors. But why? Margaret asked. Amelia pulled up property records. All 7 recently sold homes were purchased by shell companies connected to Valley Development Group. They're buying contiguous properties. Officer Rivera looked up from his notepad. Valley Development is under investigation in 3 counties for similar tactics. The doorbell rang. When I answered, Thomas stood there with 2 men in Valley Protection Services uniforms. We're here to collect the outstanding fines, he announced loudly, plus the new $500 penalty for operating a business from a residential property business. I repeated. Unauthorized meetings, he said, pointing at the cars parked outside my house. That's a clear violation of residential use only restrictions. Officer Rivera appeared behind me. Is there a problem here? Thomas's face fell. This is a private HOA matter, actually, Rivera replied. I'm investigating multiple complaints of harassment and possible fraud. I'd like your name for my report. Thomas backed away. I'll need to consult our attorney. Excellent idea, Amelia said, stepping forward. And while you're at it, please inform your attorney that Lockhart and Montgomery will be filing a formal records request tomorrow morning. We require all HOA financial documents, board meeting minutes, and violation records for the past 5 years. Thomas's face went pale. Lockhart and Montgomery. He looked at Amelia more carefully. Who exactly are you? Amelia handed him her business card. Amelia Reynolds, Senior Partner, Property Rights Division 1, specialize in HOA overreach and developer fraud. As Thomas hurried away, the security guards trailing behind him, a new car pulled up. A well-dressed woman stepped out carrying a news camera. Is this the house? She called. I'm Maya Chan from Channel 7 News. We received an anonymous tip about HOA Harassment in this neighborhood across the street. Diane emerged from her house, phone pressed to her ear, her face twisted with fury. What have you done? I whispered to Amelia. Given them something to worry about, she replied with a smile. The board meeting is tomorrow night, and we'll all be there that night after everyone left. Amelia explained her plan. While we ate dinner, we need to document everything and build a case for the Homeowners' Rights Commission. She said they can freeze the HOA's authority. While investigating, a loud crash from outside interrupted us. We ran to the window to see my mailbox knocked over, and a car speeding away on my driveway was a spray-painted message, "Sell or else." Amelia took photos while I called Officer Rivera. As we waited for him to arrive, she turned to me with a serious look. "This just became much more than HOA overreach," she said quietly. "They're getting desperate, and that makes them dangerous." From across the street, I could see Diane watching from her window, the glow of her phone illuminating her face as she recorded US bang bang bang. The pounding on my front door jolted me awake at 6:03 a.m. I stumbled down the stairs in my pajamas, heart racing. Through the peephole, I spotted 5 people on my porch: Diane Thomas, 2 board members I barely recognized, and 2 men in black uniforms with Valley Protection Services patches. "Open up, HOA business," Diane shouted, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. My hands shook as I unlocked the door. Diane pushed past me before I could even say good morning, her expensive perfume filling my hallway. "We have evidence of an unauthorized resident and an illegal neighborhood meeting," she announced, waving a folder stuffed with papers. "Your fines now total $1,500 due today." I blinked, still fuzzy from sleep. "What are you talking about? You can't just barge in here." Thomas stepped forward, his round face flushed with excitement. "Actually, Section 17B of the Covenant gives us emergency access rights when there's suspected rule breaking." He adjusted his glasses proudly. "We've documented everything." One of the security guards, a tall man with a military-style haircut, moved beside Diane. His hand rested on his belt near his taser. "Ma'am, we need to speak with the unauthorized occupant immediately." "My sister is sleeping," I protested, finding my courage come back at a reasonable hour with proper notice. Diane's thin lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Wake her now, or we add another $500 for obstruction." I called up the stairs for Amelia, my voice cracking when she appeared at the top of the staircase in her oversized t-shirt and shorts, hair messy from sleep. I saw Diane's eyes narrow with satisfaction. "What's happening?" Amelia asked, coming down slowly. The second guard, shorter but broader, moved to block the bottom of the stairs. "Are you the individual residing here without HOA approval?" "I'm visiting my sister," Amelia replied calmly, though I could see the lawyer in her awakening. "And you have no authority to interrogate me in a private home." Thomas pulled out a tablet. "Section 4C clearly states guests may not stay longer than 5 consecutive nights without board approval." He thrust the screen toward us. "It's been 14 days. You've been counting?" I asked, horrified. "You're in violation of residence regulations." Thomas continued, ignoring me. "The fine is now $2,500 due immediately, or we begin eviction proceedings on Monday." Amelia reached the bottom step. "Let me see your authorization documents for this visit, and the credentials for these security personnel." Something in her tone must have rattled Diane. "We don't need to show you anything. You're not a resident." "I'm asking as an attorney." Amelia clarified, iffied, standing straighter. "You've entered a private home at dawn with armed personnel. Show me your legal basis." The air in the room changed instantly. The tall guard reached for Amelia's arm. "You need to step back, ma'am." My sister flinched away. "Do not touch me. I have not given you permission to enter this home or to make physical contact." What happened next burned itself into my memory forever. The second guard unclipped his taser, pointed it at my sister's chest, and fired. The clicking sound and Amelia's scream merged into one terrible noise as she crumpled to the floor, her body jerking violently. I lunged forward with a cry, dropping to my knees beside her. "What have you done?" Ambulance. Diane stood over us, arms crossed, watching Amelia twitch with what looked like satisfaction. "This is what happens when people don't respect our community standards." I grabbed my phone from the entry table, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. "My sister's been tasered in my home by HOA security. We need police and an ambulance." The guards exchanged nervous glances. Thomas stepped back toward the door. "She was threatening." "Nobody move," I shouted, surprising even myself with my authority. "The police will sort this out." A movement at my side window caught my eye. My neighbor Sarah stood there, her phone held up, recording everything. She nodded once, letting me know she had captured it all. What Diane Thomas and their rent cops didn't realize as they shuffled uncomfortably in my entryway waiting for the police, my quiet sister wasn't just any lawyer with a basic understanding of property law. Amelia was a senior partner at Lockhart and Montgomery, the firm whose billboard on the highway proclaimed, "We don't just win cases, we change systems." The same firm that had brought down the corrupt West Ridge City Council last year in a case so big it made national news, and now they had given her the perfect case to bring them down too. Through my tears as I held her hand, I saw something in Amelia's eyes that, despite her pain, looked strangely like determination, like the calm before a storm that would sweep away everything in its path. How would our quiet neighborhood survive the legal hurricane that was about to hit? "She's lucky the taser didn't cause cardiac Complications. The emergency room doctor told me, pointing to the angry red marks on Amelia's chest. My sister lay on the hospital bed, pale but awake, as nurses bustled around her. Will monitor her for 24 hours, but she should make a full recovery. I squeezed Amelia's hand, tears rolling down my cheeks. The police took statements from everyone, including Sarah, who had the video. Those monsters are saying you threatened them. Amelia winced as she tried to sit up. Classic deflection tactic. Did they arrest the guard who tasered me? They took him in for questioning. Diane and Thomas left in separate police cars too. My phone buzzed non-stop with text messages from neighbors who'd heard what happened. Even people I barely knew were reaching out, sharing stories of their own run-ins with our power-hungry HOA. Mrs. Jenkins says they fined her $700 for planting tulips instead of daffodils. I read aloud, scrolling through messages. And the Rodriguez family had their Halloween decorations torn down last year because they used purple lights instead of orange. AIA's legal mind was clearly working despite her pain. Print out every message. We need to establish a pattern of arbitrary enforcement. My phone rang. It was Sarah. I put her on speaker. You won't believe this, she said, her voice hushed with excitement. After I sent that video to the police, I also sent it to my cousin Ellie, who works at the county records office. She pulled the property records for every board member's house, and I leaned closer to the phone. Diane doesn't even own her house, neither does Thomas. Their properties are owned by something called Valley Development Group. Amelia's eyes widened. Pull up their website now. With shaking hands, I searched for Valley Development on my phone. Their sleek website showed renderings of a massive luxury condo complex. I scrolled down to the location map and gasped, it's our neighborhood. They've drawn plans right over our homes. Exactly, Sarah continued. Ellie says they've quietly bought 7 houses in Pinecrest Gardens already, and guess who sits on Valley's advisory board? Diane, Thomas and Janet from the architectural committee. Amelia tried to sit up again, grimacing. They're not just being petty tyrants, this is systematic. They're creating violations, imposing impossible fines, forcing people out so Valley can buy homes cheap. My mind raced back to the past 6 months, the sudden increase in violation notices, the harsh fines, the aggressive enforcement. It all made terrible sense now, but why target us specifically? I wondered. Your house sits at the corner of the proposed main entrance to their development, Sarah explained. Ellie showed me the plans. They need your property more than most. Outside the hospital room, I noticed a police officer standing guard. The nurse had mentioned something about ensuring patient safety after the incident. I hadn't questioned it then, but now I wondered if there was more to the story. Amelia's phone lit up with a message. She read it, and a small smile formed on her lips despite her pain. That was Edward Lockhart, the managing partner of my firm. He's taking our case personally. Her voice strengthened. When he heard what happened, he called the district attorney directly. My jaw dropped. The day Edward and DeMichaels went to law school together, and my firm helped expose that real estate corruption case in West Ridge last year. Amelia's eyes had that determined look again. This isn't their first rodeo with developers abusing local authorities. A nurse entered with medication, checking Amelia's vitals after she left. My sister gripped my hand with surprising strength. Tell everyone in the neighborhood to document everything, every fine, every interaction, every board decision, and most importantly, don't pay a single cent more in fines or fees, not one penny. I nodded, already drafting a message to our growing neighborhood group chat. What about the police? What did they say would happen now? The officer who took my statement mentioned that tasering someone in their home over an HOA rule could be considered excessive force and possibly assault. Amelia closed her eyes briefly. But we need to move fast. People with money and connections like Valley Development can make problems disappear. Just then my phone dinged with a news alert. A local reporter had somehow gotten hold of Sarah's video. The headline read, HOA security tasers homeowner's sister in dawn raid. It's starting, Amelia whispered as night fell. I stayed by Amelia's bedside while she made calls to colleagues at her firm every hour, brought new messages from neighbors with their own stories of HOA abuse. Around midnight, Sarah sent a text that made my blood run cold. Just drove by Diane's house, huge meeting happening there, black SUVs with Valley Development logos in driveway. Amelia read the message over my shoulder and nodded grimly. They're scrambling. Good. I looked at my sister, still connected to monitors, her lawyer mind working. Despite the physical trauma, what happens now? Amelia's face transformed with a determination I'd never seen before. Now we go to war, legal war. While Diane met with Valley Development executives across town plotting their next move, she remained unaware of 3 crucial facts. The district attorney's office had just received our evidence package. Amelia's law firm had assigned 5 attorneys to our case, and most damning of all, the HOA's financial records for the past 5 years were being subpoenaed first thing in the morning. Would our quiet neighborhood ever be the same after the truth about Diane's corruption explosion burst into the open? They broke into my house. I Screamed into the phone to the police dispatcher while staring at my shattered front door. Papers were thrown everywhere, furniture overturned, and pinned to my living room wall with a kitchen knife was a handwritten note, "Drop it, or else." My hands shook as I took photos of everything before the police arrived. Amelia walked through the wreckage with scary calmness, her lawyer eyes noticing details I missed. "Look at these boot prints," she pointed. "Same tread pattern as the security guards Diane hired." She picked up a business card that had fallen from someone's pocket. "Valley Protection Services." The police took statements, but didn't seem very interested until Amelia mentioned she was a senior partner at Lockett and Montgomery. The officer's attitude changed instantly. "We've got you on 4 security cameras, Diane," I overheard the detective say on the phone later. "Your security guards too. Breaking and entering is a felony." The very next morning a certified letter arrived from the HOA. They were placing a $115,000 lien on my house for accumulated fines and penalties. 3 neighbors received similar notices within hours. "Perfect timing," Amelia said, adding the letter to her evidence pile. "Now we've got proof they're retaliating." She hadn't slept. The taser marks on her chest still angry red as she worked through the night. Legal books covered my dining table, and case files filled every chair. My doorbell rang constantly that day. Scared neighbors bringing their own HOA horror stories. Mrs. Patel had been fined for her ethnic garden plants. The Johnsons were threatened with eviction for their son's wheelchair ramp. Single dad Miguel showed us photos of Diane measuring his grass with a ruler. "Something's not adding up," Amelia said, studying neighborhood property maps she'd ordered from county records. "Why is our HOA suddenly enforcing rules nobody cared about for years?" Sarah from next door burst in without knocking. "My cousin at the county records office found something huge." She slapped down a stack of papers. "Diane doesn't even own her house. It's owned by Valley Development Group. They're the ones building that huge condo project downtown." Amelia grabbed the papers, her eyes widening. "This explains everything." She opened her laptop and showed us a web of connections. Valley Development had secretly bought 6 houses in our neighborhood. Already 3 HOA board members, including Diane and Thomas, were on their payroll. "They're forcing people out," Amelia explained, "creating violations, imposing impossible fines, driving down property values so Valley can buy homes cheap." That evening we called an emergency neighborhood meeting at the community center. Over 50 people came, afraid but angry. Amelia projected her evidence on the wall, including Sarah's video of the taser attack. Gasps filled the room as bank statements appeared showing thousands in HOA fees funneled to shell companies owned by Valley Development. "The HOA has broken laws in ways I can't even count," Amelia explained in simple terms. "They've made up rules, held secret meetings, and stolen our money." Mr. Jenkins, our oldest resident, stood up shakily. "They told me I had to pay $5,000 for my bird bath or lose my home." His voice cracked. "I've lived here for 30 years." Amelia put her hand on his shoulder. "Not anymore. So my law firm is filing a class action lawsuit tomorrow. We're going after Valley Development, the HOA board, and those security thugs." As people left the meeting with new hope, we found every single car in the parking lot plastered with violation notices. Standing across the street watching with obvious fury was Diane with 2 security guards. "This isn't over," she shouted when she saw us looking. "Actually, it is," Amelia said quietly, pulling out her phone, "because we just got a court order freezing the HOA accounts. And look who else is here." A news van pulled into the parking lot, a reporter and cameraman jumping out. "Are you Amelia? We got your evidence package about the HOA corruption scandal." Diane's face went white as the cameras turned toward her. She hurried to her car, the security guards following quickly. Back at home, as I swept up broken glass from my doorway, Amelia's phone rang. The district attorney himself was calling. He remembered her from the city corruption case last year. They were opening an immediate investigation. "We're winning," Amelia said, finally allowing herself a smile. But at 3 a.m. we both woke to the sound of screeching tires. Looking out the window, we saw Diane's car speeding away from the neighborhood. In the darkness behind her house, flames were beginning to rise. "She's burning the evidence," Amelia whispered in horror. "Fire trucks now," I screamed into my phone as flames leapt from Diane's backyard. Neighbors poured from their homes in pajamas, while Amelia sprinted across the street. "Stay back," she shouted, pulling me away from the blaze. "Look what she's burning." In Diane's fire pit we could see file folders and papers curling in the flames. One partially burned document flew out, a contract between Valley Development and the HOA board members. "She's destroying evidence," Amelia said, quickly snapping photos with her phone. Firefighters arrived within minutes, followed by police who secured the area as a potential crime scene. Detective Rodriguez kneeled by the smoldering remains. "This is now part of our investigation," he told us, carefully bagging charred paper scraps. "We've been watching Mrs. Wilcox since your report yesterday. By dawn, neighbors gathered on my lawn bringing coffee and donuts." "Did you see Diane drive away last night?" asked Miguel. "She had suitcases packed in her car trying to run." Sarah nodded. "Classic guilty move." At 9 a.m. sharp my phone buzzed with a news alert. "Local HOA president arrested at airport." The attached video showed Diane in handcuffs being led from the boarding area of a flight to Mexico. "Got her," cheered Mrs. Patel, watching over my shoulder. Amelia's phone rang non-stop. That Morning first her law firm, then the district attorney, then reporters. By noon Thomas, the HOA treasurer, turned himself in, agreeing to testify against Diane and Valley Development in exchange for a lighter sentence. He's singing like a bird, Amelia told me covering the phone. Says Valley Development planted Diane in our neighborhood 3 years ago to drive people out. They paid her 10% commission on every house she helped them buy below market value. That afternoon we received shocking news. 17 homeowners in Pinecrest Gardens had already sold to Val Development at massive losses after HOA harassment. The development company had plans for a luxury condo tower where our home stood. It gets worse, Amelia said, reviewing financial records the court had ordered released. They've stolen over $300,000 from our HOA maintenance fund. That's why the playground is falling apart, and the pool hasn't been cleaned. The following day TV trucks lined our street as the Valley Protection Security guard who tasered Amelia was arrested. The cameras caught him being read his rights as neighbors cheered from their lawns. He was never even licensed to carry a taser. Detective Rodrigo Easy told us these guys were basically hired thugs with fake uniforms. A week later the judge granted our emergency petition to freeze all HOA activities given the overwhelming evidence of fraud and corruption. Judge Martinez announced this court has no choice but to appoint a receiver until new elections can be held. Valley Development CEO was indicted next, along with 2 city officials who had fast-tracked zoning changes for the planned condo project. The company's stock plummeted as investors fled. We found a secret bank account, Amelia said one evening reviewing documents with me. That's where your HOA fees really went straight to the Cayman Islands. The district attorney called a press conference where he publicly thanked Amelia and our neighborhood for uncovering the scheme. This type of corruption hurts real families. He said we believe similar schemes may be operating in other communities. 6 weeks later our class action lawsuit resulted in Valley Development paying $4.8 million to affected homeowners. Every improper fine was cancelled and liens removed from homes. The company was forced to sell back all 17 properties they had acquired through their scheme. Worth getting tasered for, Amelia joked as we watched the settlement announcement on TV. The best moment came 2 months after Diane's arrest. Our neighborhood gathered in the newly renovated community center paid for by the settlement to elect a new HOA board. Mrs. Patel, Miguel and Sarah were among those chosen. Our first act, Sarah announced as new board president, is to approve these bylaws written by Amelia. They require total financial transparency, recorded meetings open to all residents, and an annual independent and audit. The crowd erupted in applause as Amelia blushed later that night as neighbors mingled with refreshments. Amelia pulled me aside. My firm wants me to head up a new division, she said, eyes sparkling with excitement. We specialize in helping neighborhoods fight corrupt HOAs. You're moving back to your apartment downtown, I asked, disappointed. She grinned and pointed across the street. See that for sale sign on Diane's old house. I made an offer this morning, full price. I hugged her tightly. Diane would hate that so much. One more thing, Amelia said, lowering her voice. The FBI came to my office today. Turns out our little HOA scandal broke open something much bigger. Corrupt HOAs and development companies pulling the same scheme in 6 different states. 3 months later Pinecrest Gardens hosted its first ever neighborhood block party. Kids played on the new playground equipment while adults grilled burgers and shared stories. The basketball hoop, bird feeders and ethnic garden plants were all on proud display. No violation notices in sight. Mr. Jenkins unveiled a new community garden where Diane's house once stood. Amelia decided the neighborhood needed green space more than she needed the particular home. From this soil something good will grow, the old man said, planting the first tomato seedling. That evening a Sir lights twinkled over our cul-de-sac and neighbors danced to music. I found Amelia talking with Detective Rodriguez, now a friend. Remember when she had me tasered right there in your doorway? She laughed, pointing to my front door. Biggest mistake of her life, I replied. No, Amelia corrected me, looking around at our transformed neighborhood. Her biggest mistake was thinking she could break a community instead of bringing it together. As I looked at the faces of neighbors who had become family through our shared battle, I realized something powerful. Sometimes it takes standing up to bullies to find your own strength, and sometimes the most unexpected heroes are the ones sitting right across your dinner table.